there have been a whole host of conversations on the pipeline 150-hour conversation, but there are some interesting alternative pathways right now for educators, students, and current CPAs to be aware of. This is the NJCPA Issues Watch podcast. Welcome back to the NJCPA Issues Watch podcast. I'm your host for everything technology related, Stein Smith. And I also have the great honor to be serving on the board during this current 3-year cycle. And I always try to be as active and as involved at the NJCPA as I possibly can. So I'm extra thrilled to be joined this month by my friend and colleague and co-author on a few upcoming pieces, heads up there, Joshua McGowan, who is on top of being a academic expert in accounting, auditing, crypto, he's also very good at Twitter, right? And that I know that I post a lot on Twitter, but that I've learned from Josh how to sort of maximize my impact on that platform over the last couple months. Josh, awesome to have you on.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. I'm the associate director here at the William H. Carr School of Accountancy at Troy University. Been teaching for 5 years now. Really love teaching accounting. Spent some time in public accounting, spent some time in private industry. So that's really cool, bringing some of those experiences to the students. And yeah, Twitter's been good to me for a couple of reasons, but the real reason I got on there, real quick story. I got on there when I was building a house and lumber prices were just skyrocketing. And there was this individual in there, Stinson Dean, who he was a lumber trader and he was kind of predicting where lumber prices were going to go. And once I got on there, I somehow got into accounting Twitter, tax Twitter, and there's a lot of negativity. So I decided just to kind of bring some positivity. There's a lot of good things that accounting does, a lot of great opportunities in accounting. And but I've gained a lot of really good friends and colleagues on Twitter, so it's been really cool to watch.
Awesome stuff, Josh. And actually, I believe it was on Twitter how the two of us actually got so hooked up originally. So, online social media, it's a great thing, it's a bad thing. But the one thing it does is it does force people to interact. Okay.
Yes. So, I even encourage some of our students to get on there. I think it's a great idea for them to go ahead and start building their brand on there. And like you said, it's kind of one of the few places you're able to interact with firm owners, people at all levels of IssuesWatch, NASBA. So it's really cool and a great experience for students as well.
Absolutely. And so, building on that comment about the IssuesWatch, NASBA, right? There's a huge conversation going on right now on the pipeline of CPAs and a whole host of other topics linked to that. But the area that I want to pick your brain on today, Josh, is this idea of the 150-hour requirement for anybody wanting to become a CPA. And so to sort of briefly summarize what the issue is and the core points in it, would you be able to add some context for us?
Yeah, that sounds great. It is, like you said, it is a massive discussion going on. I guess you could say a lot of disagreement at different levels, but I think everybody's coming from the right place. It's all to one, broaden our profession, and two, kind of take down some of the barriers and things of that nature. So I think all the discussions coming from the right place. There's just a lot of maybe unintended consequences, no matter kind of what you choose. And I think it's just great to be aware of what's going to happen depending on which path you choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to echo on that point, right, there are people who have extremely strong views on either side, right, of this issue, that having the 150 is an absolute positive, or that having the 150 is, adding on to your point, it is a major obstacle and hurdle that is only further amplifying other pipeline issues that are currently being talked about. But so, and obviously, right, that whole debate and conversation could be talked about for hours. but in terms of your sort of hands-on interaction, are you getting feedback from your current students, recent graduates, and other people in the higher ed space on this topic, and how they're handling questions on this topic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess to begin, the push to me to go from 150 to 120 does not seem to be coming from students so much as it is from either firms or maybe some other regulatory bodies. But it doesn't seem to be really on the students' radar. Most of the students we talk to, the one thing about it is the cost. So the
Sure.
cost is definitely an issue students are always concerned with, rightfully so. The ROI on any degree you should look at, ROI on any class you should look at. But in general, it seems like students, and there's different, masters of accountancy programs out there where I teach and what I'm familiar with, we're really CPA exam focused. Not saying we only teach a CPA exam or anything like that, but we realize most of our students are in the classes taking the CPA exam, and that's one of their main goals, is passing that exam. So we do a lot to really focus on helping them pass that exam, and I think they benefit from that. They benefit from being in a cohort, kind of going through the CPA exam together, as many of us did. Maybe when we were getting our PhDs or DBAs, you had your cohort you almost worked with, and that really helped, having somebody you can bounce ideas off of, study with, things of that nature. So that's interesting. But with that said, I guess I'm probably in the minority, definitely in the minority, that isn't just completely on board with going to 120. And I'm sure maybe we'll get into a couple of those reasons why. But there's definitely a majority of people out there who say, why do they need these extra 30 hours? And we've talked about before, I think it's pretty tough to defend sometimes when the 30 hours are in anything. They don't have to be accounting related or IS related or data analytic related. So that does make it a little tougher for us to defend, I think.
Yeah, and to just sort of add on to that, Josh, right? That that the whole idea of having students have to complete a whole extra year of academic work by itself, I don't think is a major issue. Now, obviously, time and money are always factors, certainly, but there are other industries, other fields that also ask college students to go 2, 4, 8 extra years sometimes. And so the angle that I'm viewing it from is that the 150-hour conversation is the current topic at hand, but it's actually more a sort of proxy for the bigger conversation over one. Our educators, basically us, right? Our educators basically teaching our students, both now and going forward, the correct competencies to go out there and to pass exams and to get jobs and to keep jobs. And two, on the side of employers and firms, basically trying to make sure that, again, both now and going forward, they have qualified people to hold and to then grow in their firms. So the whole conversation, I think, isn't really so much about the 150. It obviously is, and there are some pretty creative options out there that the two of us will unpack. But it's more a sort of, I think, indirect reflection of how much our field has changed over the last 10 or 20 years, or going back 30 years prior to when this 150 credit hour actually existed.
Right. Yeah. And what I kind of, and I wouldn't say find funny, but along those same lines, is this discussion just recently became, I guess, so widespread in the last couple of years. And it aligns perfectly with the struggles we've had. I would say struggles that accounting programs and firms have had recruiting in students and young employees or first-year employees. So that's kind of one issue. But my biggest thing about that is and this is just my opinion, but I personally don't think going from 150 to 120 solves that issue. And I think that's where a lot of people are coming from. Their whole point in diving into this is we need more people at our firms, or, we need more CPAs in the United States to keep the pipeline moving along. And, we do need more CPAs. I hear some people say, oh, supply and demand, that makes us earn more, but there's a lot of issues if we keep declining in the number of CPAs. So we definitely want to produce more accounting majors, produce more CPAs. But I go in front of my principal's one class and, I asked him, I was like, how many of y'all are thinking about majoring in accounting? And so many hands go up, and, then I start getting into the reasons why. And personally, I have never been told that, well, I need 150 hours to get the CPA exam or to get the CPA license, or I got to stay that extra year. That has never been brought up once. There's plenty of other reasons though. Well, I heard your job is really boring. I heard you just sit in the office all day. I heard that you work really long hours and you don't get paid as much as the people who are coming out in data analytics. Those are the reasons I hear over and over again. But I don't, like I said, I've never heard of a 150. Not saying it doesn't exist, just in my experience, that is definitely not why the majority of students are not choosing accounting.
Oh yeah, no, and the whole conversation on the pipeline, right? Why it's dropping and the efforts to try to basically fill it back up. It's a combination of compensation, work-life balance, other benefits, and trying to not sort of make it interesting, but to, I'd say, better communicate how interesting working in accounting can be, right? Audits and taxes are, of course, big parts of both the work and also the headset of folks thinking about working in this corporate accounting field or at a firm. But so the whole
accountants by our nature are not the best marketers. There's a reason most of us
trying to get better
accounting over marketing, and I think that's come back to bite us a little bit. Not kind of having that branding out there that some of the other majors do.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so adding on to that, Josh, right? And I believe I saw you tweeting this out last night. There are some pretty interesting alternative programs out there, basically trying to help students get the 150, which in most every state, even now, is the baseline to actually get your CPA license. So there are some pretty interesting sort of workaround plans out there. I know here in New Jersey, there's a very interesting pilot program at St. Peter's where they basically have, as you outlined earlier, a sort of cohort model of students working at a Big Four firm, earning credits at that exact same time. But are there any other interesting programs or alternative pipelines out there?
We just recently discussed with our society, the Alabama Society of CPAs, different things we can do at the university level. I think one of the big things our society is focused on is maybe getting some of those students who maybe are not accounting majors, but they graduate with another degree and they think, hey, this is and even some of the firms are going into different majors and starting to recruit even outside of the school of business, which is typically where an accounting firm would recruit out of. They might be going over to the history department or wherever and getting
the history department. Come on, Josh.
Right. And so we're talking about I think the biggest thing we can do as educators and programs within masters of accountancies and stuff of that nature is provide flexibility. I think more than anything, that's what students are looking for, and it seems like that's what firms are looking for too. But maybe they have this person who's an IS major who wants, they would be great for their firm and they want them to become a CPA. Well, maybe we give them some heavier accounting classes, but then maybe they have this accounting major and they need a consortment of, hey, let's beef up our technology skills. So I think in the past, a lot of programs have been very rigid with good content you can take and how you can take it. I mean, just recently, or in the past, almost every master's program was in person. You had to be sitting on campus, missing out on that whole year's worth of salary, missing out on that 1 year of your career moving forward. We at Troy University, we just started a high flex program. We're starting in the fall. That's going to be, completely, you can be in class in person, you can be virtual in a Teams meeting, or you can watch it recorded. So that gives the student complete flexibility. If they want to work full time, they can. If they want to work part time, they can. So I think the more we do that and just give that flexibility to the students, whether they're a traditional student or non-traditional, I think that's going to help our pipeline expand as we keep moving down that avenue.
Excellent points there, Josh. And there's a anecdote that I always try to use, right? That if every other aspect of business life and personal life is personalized, customized, and on demand, except for us and our services and our offerings, that's a problem.
That is
right?
a great point. Yeah.
And that having more flexibility and optionality in any form, right? Weekend classes, night classes, hybrid classes, getting credits for working in some sort of co-op program, all of those are great ideas that are underway at a whole host of institutions, I am sure. But again, it really does highlight the actuality that the 150, our, rule is the topic at hand, but it's almost being used as a proxy for these whole other bunch of issues out there. And to just sort of add on sort of one other thing here is that, from a business point of view, from a practice management point of view, the sort of buckets of accounting, finance, IT, planning, budgeting used to be very different.
Yes.
But honestly, now there's more and more overlap, right? Be it blockchain, AI, ChatGPT, any other type of automation, all of that knowledge and all of those competencies are more and more overlapping. And so it absolutely makes total sense to try to broaden the sort of lens through which we as educators or as hiring partners at firms view the overall sort of talent pool.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Sean, can I get your opinion on something real quick?
Oh, geez, wait a second. No,
I got a question for you.
This is one thing I asked the questions here.
I recently heard this, and this is something that has not come up much in the 150 topic.
Okay.
So just talking about the logistics of it, right? Every state has their own rules set by their state board of accountancy. Typically, to change it, or I believe in all states, you would have to go through the state legislative bodies. And one, at least in quite a few states, there's definitely a environment of deregulation. And that is one thing I've heard recently, and I don't see discussed on Twitter or anywhere else, that we need to be very cautious about decreasing the regulations to become a CPA in this environment, because if we go to our state legislators and say, hey, we no longer need 150 hours, we only need 120 and the CPA exam and the 1 year worth of work experience. I think what stops them from asking, why don't you go further? Why do you need a college degree? Why do you have to pass this CPA exam? Isn't 120 or maybe 120 hours with an accounting major is good? So I think we have to, that's another piece of it that we got to be careful, because it's not just us that make these laws, right? Or we don't make the laws. Maybe we can advocate for certain stances we want, but at the end of the day, it's your state congressmen and your state senators and your governor that's going to sign the bill that declares what's law in your state, obviously. So I think that's one thing I've heard recently. Do we want to open that can of worms almost? Because I guess my argument is that nurses and other professions who are having the same kind of pipeline crunch, they're not running to their state legislators and asking to reduce their standards.
Yeah. So at the risk of aggravating everybody, right? The opinion I have is that on the one hand, right, there is this reality, right, that there aren't enough people majoring in accounting, passing the exam, joining the workforce, and staying as CPAs, right? That's the reality of it. Ask anybody in any state, right? Be they pro regulation or more of a hands-off mindset, right? That's the facts.
100%.
So then basically all that we're talking about is how to increase the number of people in the pipe. And all of us are hoping collectively that we increase that sort of inflow of people at the beginning and then tweak things at the end, compensation, hours, that basically that'll help fix the problem. Now, how we get there in terms, and I do fully understand that the cost of an extra year of college, and then that opens up the whole other can of worms on the whole value of college, which is a whole other conversation.
Right.
But I do know that I was at a ICPA conference, I believe it was in Gage, where Barry Melanson basically echoed those points that after you start taking away credentials or education or other testing requirements to enter a field, then it's awfully easy to then pull more and more back, and to then basically turn your industry into a trade versus being a profession.
Right.
And so that's his argument, and there's definitely worth to that, 100%. What I would say personally, my point of view here, and again, at the risk of aggravating everybody on either side of the issue, is that I don't think in and of itself that the 150-hour rule is the problem, right? Because it could be 120 hours, 150 hours. People go to school for all kinds of reasons, for all kinds of times, for all kinds of things, not counting college credits, right? I just have never seen that personally, but they're in school, they're in college, they're in programs. So one, because they're hopefully interested, right, in the actual topics, and two, in their minds, based on their conversations with their advisors, faculty, parents, colleagues, friends, that by doing that, they will have the education and the expertise to earn a good living and to be able to grow and develop in that field. And so that's the real issue. And to echo on your point earlier, Josh, this whole idea of having to market being a CPA is, I think, something that we collectively have not been doing a great job of. I know that over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, there has been a big uptick in that, and there are more people out there, including you, trying to not cast a good spin on it per se, but to honestly highlight the upsides and the opportunities in it, as opposed to just focusing on doing audits or having the IRS audit you and your clients, right? Because that happens, and every job, every field has those unpleasant interactions, but it's a great career, it's a great field, and there's a lot of opportunity. And so this whole debate and this really I would say rigorous debate on this topic is, I think, well intentioned, but it isn't quite hitting the mark, I think, personally.
And I really I just want to echo your positivity around the situation. I think when I sit in on meetings with firm leaders or whoever it may be, the one thing they recognize, and I've heard this multiple times from different partners and other CEOs of societies and things of that nature, it's not you, the student, that needs to change or anything of that like that. It's us, the firm, that needs to change, and we realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about all sorts of things, the work-life balance. One thing I think we can do at a broader level, going back to my principles of accounting class, when I got 80 or 100 students in there or whatever it may be, and I ask, hey, how many of you want to start your own business? It's like 85% of hands go up. And I will pretty much die on the hill that if you want to start your own business, if you want to do anything to do with entrepreneurship, accounting is a great choice. If you learn the inside and outs of a business, the financials, how to affect the financials. Definitely, if you go into audit, you get to look at all successful companies. You got to look at, unsuccessful companies. And I think that is this if I could pick one word about the generation that's currently in college, I would use the word entrepreneurial. They want, and it rightfully so. And they've seen, a lot of their parents and grandparents maybe work for large firms or large companies. And at the end of the day, they're getting raised in this generation where, hey, this person on YouTube is making hundreds of thousands or millions all by themselves, or whatever the case may be. And I think if we push accounting as, hey, this will help you get to what you want to do. Plus, it's almost, to me, it's not only does it fit the entrepreneurial track, it's a great hedge. Because not all small businesses are going to work out, not all startups are going to work out. But with accounting, with the stability you have in the workforce, with the demand needed for our services, it's pretty great to be able to take some risk on that side, but also be able to fall back on a steady job if you need that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and 100% right. And to just sort of close our conversation, which I'm sure the two of us could go on for hours.
Absolutely, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Absolutely, no, and it's important to have these conversations in a reasonable, objective manner. Ignore my dogs barking upstairs, everybody. Totally fine. But to end sort of our conversation here, a anecdote that I always try to use is that everybody who you admire as a celebrity, entertainer, influencer, be it Bad Bunny, Mr. Beast, any of those influencers, right? I guarantee you they have a team of CPAs and tax experts, working with them or in their orbit every day.
Absolutely.
And so, any business, any field, anything has to have, or any industry rather, has to have people in it who understand the underlying financial statements. And so basically that is our value pitch going forward. Help our clients, help our partners make better business choices.
Absolutely.
End of conversation.
And I'm spot on. And I appreciate you, Sean, for having me on. I think we're moving in the right direction, which is awesome. I think no matter who you talk to, they would probably pretty much tell you that we are moving in the right direction. With everything, it takes time. I think we're starting to focus on the right things that are going to make our profession more marketable to the younger generations, more attractive to them. And, some things, it just takes work, it takes time, but the discussions are leading us to action finally. That's the number one thing, discussion, just to have discussion doesn't do much. But when you actually start acting on the ideas and acting on the changes, you start making some progress. So I'm really positive about the future. I think accounting is one of the best majors you could choose moving forward, regardless if it's 120 hours or 150 hours. You're making a great choice to major in accounting, and I hope we just continue moving in the right direction.
Absolutely, Josh. Well said. And Josh, it was an absolute blast having you on the podcast. I always like having upbeat, optimistic people, but who are upbeat and optimistic for good reason, right? That's that balance right there. No, and I will absolutely have you on the podcast at some point in the future. I can guarantee you that. And for everyone tuning into our podcast today, if you have not yet joined the Emerging Technologies Interest Group, I highly encourage you all to do so. It's online at njcpa.org/groups. And all of our NJCPA Issues Watch podcast episodes are available online at njcpa.org/podcast. Thanks, and have an awesome day.